Okay, welcome everyone. This is Epic Galaxies how to play video. In this video, I'm going to explain to you how to set up this game, how to play it, and also a couple of tips and tricks how to win this game. So let's get to it. Okay, so let's start with setting up the game. So this is an example of 3 players game. So each player gets 4 ships and 3 tokens that will indicate how many resources each player has. So you start with only 2 ships, so put the rest aside. Then you use a star symbol on the empire improvements track. So each time you upgrade your empire, you will get some additional actions or more ships. Then you also have energy and culture. So these are your 2 resources. You start with 1 culture and 2 energy, and basically you are just putting them on this track and on the corresponding numbers. Then we will repeat that. Then you also have the basic math, where will you track how many actions you have already done. And then you will put galaxies that are available in this game. So the number of colonies that are available, these are colonies. So the number of colonies that are available are equal to the number of players, in this case is 3, plus 2. So with 3 players game, we'll have 5 planets to colonize. And we have 7 die. So we also have secret missions. So in case if you already played this game once or 2 times, you can add them to the game. So basically they are an additional objective for every individual player. If you want to play with them, you deal 2 missions to each player, and then a player secretly decides which mission they want to keep or which one to discard. And they just keep that one mission for the rest of the game, and at the end of the game it potentially may give some additional victory points. But in this example, I will not be using them, so we are looking at the base game. So this is the way the game looks when you just set it up. And the way to play this game, you randomly decide who is the starting player. There is no big difference because every player will get equal number of turns. So let's say if a yellow is the first player, and the yellow then will trigger endgame, green and red will still have 1 additional turn after the game is finished. That way every player will have equal number of turns, and that's why it's not really big difference who is starting first. During your turn, you can do a number of actions. You do that by rolling your dice and executing them in any order you choose. So when you perform an action on a die, you just put it on symbol 1 to show, on number 1 to show that you have done that action, and so on and so forth. So once you've executed all your dice, then the turn order finishes, and then the next player will roll this die and perform their actions. So let's have a look at what actions you can actually perform with your dice. The first 2 symbols that I'm going to explain are culture and energy. So if you use this die with energy, it will give you energy. So how many energy depends on how many ships you have and on which locations they are currently standing. So each location has a symbol of either energy or culture. So let's say if your two ships are located in your home galaxy, or one of the ships is already on one of the colonies with this symbol, it means that that ship will produce you one energy. So for this die, because of the two ships on the energy symbols, this die will give you 2 energy, and you move from 2 to 4. Then this die, culture, works the same way. So you look at how many ships are located on culture space. So your home galaxy only counts as an energy, and we don't have any yellows on culture spaces, meaning that this die is wasted. You don't get any culture. This die is allowing you to move one of your ships from either galaxy or from other planets. So you move them by just placing on a colony, and you can put it in 2 different ways. You can either visit a colony. If you do that, you just perform the action underneath the colony and that's it. That's one-time thing. Or alternatively, you can start colonizing the planet. In that case, you do not perform that action, but you potentially can get this colony. It will become yours if you're the first to colonize it. And if you do that, you will get 1 victory point. So the other 2 symbols, they are allowing you to colonize the planet. So each planet has one of the 2 symbols, either this one or this. And you have a corresponding symbol on the dice cube as well. So if you use this cube while your ship is on the planet with the matching symbol, you can move it 1 step up. And once you get to the final stage, then you take the colony, you return a ship back to your mat, and you get a new one. So now everybody can play to fly to a new colony. You will always have 5 planets available in the 3 players game. So each time you take one, you refill stack. Okay, so this symbol allows you in the same way to colonize planet that has this symbol as a requirement. And the last one, the last side on the die with a symbol of like a house. So this allows you to do one of the 2 actions. One is to upgrade your empire. So you do that by paying either culture or energy. So currently each player starts at level 1. So in order to upgrade to level 2, you have to pay 2 resources. To upgrade to level 3, it will be 3, 4, 5, and 6. So the only thing to remember though is you can only pay either energy or culture. You cannot combine. So if you for example had 1 culture and 1 energy, you would not be able to upgrade to level 2. But in this case, since we have 4 energy, we can safely pay 2. So we're reducing our energy to 2. We upgraded our empire to level 2. So now what these upgrades do. So on each empire level, there is a corresponding improvement in terms of how many ships you can have. So first level and second level, you still have just 2 ships, but once you get to level 3, you will have your 3rd ships added, and you do that immediately. Then you also increase the number of dice you roll. So I showed you 6 different die, but at the start of the game, you only have 4. When you upgrade your empire to level 2, you will get the 5th die, but you will get it in the next round. So you get your ships immediately and you get your dice in the next round. And also you get some victory points. So at the max level you will have 8 victory points, 7 dice, and 4 ships to use. Okay, so I was explaining this last die. So one of the actions that you can do with this is to upgrade your empire, or the second action, in case if you already have a colony, you can perform an action. So normally when you acquire a colony, you put it underneath your mat. It's just bottom side visible. That's what you need. So you can see how many victory points you have, and also you can see the actions that that colony allows you to do. So generally speaking, the higher, the more expensive the colony is, the more victory points it gives you, the longer it gets to get the colony, but also the more powerful action is at the bottom. This is the base mechanics of what you can do during your turn. There is also a couple of more things that you can potentially do. Is, let's say if you roll a bunch of dice, and you don't like them, you can keep some and you can re-roll the rest. You can re-roll as many dice as you want. The first re-roll is free, but then if you still don't like them, you can pay 1 energy and re-roll again any number of dice you want. So you still just pay 1 energy and you roll as many dice as you want. Culture is used in a slightly different way. So let's say a player has performed an action and other players like that action, they have an option to follow you. So once yellow executed the action and placed the die on number 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever, other players in the turn order can choose to spend 1 culture and follow that action. Effectively, green can now execute this die. Be careful though, in case if yellow executes this die to perform an action on the colony and green decides to follow, green is only following the dice itself. Last thing that you can do is, in case if you had a really bad roll, let's say you need to fly, you don't have any energy and you're out of options, you can choose to discard 2 dice and then flip one of the remaining dice into whatever you want. So once the player has performed all the actions that he can, the turn order for that player finishes and then the next player starts. And you continue playing until one of the players will get to 21 points. So you combine your your empire improvements and all the colonies that you acquired. Now a couple of words about the colonies and how to colonize them. So when you land on the colony, you perform the bottom action. If you colonize it, you go on this track and then you can get the colony itself. Now the thing is, you can have multiple ships on the same colony. You can simultaneously colonize and land on it, but you cannot have 2 ships landing on it and performing the bottom action. If you want to use it multiple times, you can land on it once, then move it somewhere or move it back to your galaxy. You still need to use that action, fly action, to move it back or move it to another place. You can also move the ship that is already colonizing a planet from it somewhere else or again back. You cannot have 2 ships landing on it and performing the action. Also, you can have ships from other players landed on the same colony. There is no collision with that. And you can have multiple ships trying to colonize it as well. So you just put them one onto each other. And whoever gets to the final step first will get the colony itself. Now, a couple of words about this strategy in this game. So this is a very simple mechanics. Who gets 21 victory point wins. The question is who gets there faster. So in order to be faster, you need to be able to perform more actions during your turn. By actions, I mean your dice. And also, you want each of your actions to be as efficient as possible. So the number of actions, dice, you can increase by improving your empire. So if you get to level 6, you will have 7 dice to use. It is almost double compared to the starting level of just 1. So that's why it's very good idea to focus on improving your empire to get as many dice as possible. Additionally, improving your empire is adding more ships to your mat, meaning that each time you acquire either energy or culture, you will get more resources. But the first thing to focus is on improving the number of dice you have. Now, once you rolled your dice, the question is how do you improve efficiency of each die? So when speaking of energy and culture, you're getting energy or culture for each ship located either on energy or on culture locations. Meaning that if you're using this die, you would want all your ships to be located on energy, and when you're using culture dice, you would want all your ships located on the culture spaces. So what it means is that you probably won't be able to effectively get both of them. You have to focus, either getting on energy or just getting on culture. The problem is that your starting position is always getting energy, so probably it's quite easier to get energy than culture. And normally you need a little bit of both, but generally speaking, energy is cheaper, easier to acquire, so probably it's better to focus on it first. Then, once you have more ships, it's a good idea to try and get some of the culture by placing all of your ships potentially on multiple cards. So this way you will get 4 culture. Additional consideration to either use energy or culture. So the main benefit of culture is you are able to follow other players' actions. And the more players there are in the game, the more variety of actions there will be for you to follow. So that is why general trend is, if there are more players, culture becomes more useful. With less players, energy becomes a little bit more useful. So with 2 players game, you probably can play the game without ever using this die. With 4 players, I would highly recommend using culture as much as you can. Additional trick with culture, let's say you already have one, let's say you only have at least 2 ships on the culture space. So 2, 3 is better, 4 is even better, but at least 2 is nice. And let's say green player is using culture die. So in that case, if you use 1 culture to follow his action, you get 2 cultures back. So effectively, when any player is using a culture dice, for you it's a free game of at least 1 culture on top. So the more players there are, the more culture dice they will use, the more efficient it becomes. Another thing to consider is which colony to focus on. So let's look at 1 and 7 as a comparison. The rest are falling somewhere in between. So to get colony with number 1, you need one action to fly there, then you need 2 actions to move up the track. Effectively, it means that you need 3 actions to get 1 victory point, which means that you get 0.33 victory points per action. Now let's look at the different scenario. Let's look at this count. So you need, again, 1 action to fly, then you need 6 more actions to colonize it. I'm gonna just put these guys, not bothering putting them to the right side. So it means that you will spend 7 actions to get 7 victory points. Effectively, it means 1 victory point for 1 action. Whilst here we have 1 victory point for 3 actions. So this card is 3 times more efficient than this one. So if you see a 7, you probably should jump ahead and try and get it. 5 are also very good, so you will get 5 victory points for effectively 6 actions. Not as great as 7, but still very, very decent. And probably the last thing is what happens if you used almost all your dice. You have just 1 left, which isn't exactly what you want. So the question is, should you spend 1 energy to reroll it or not? If it's just 1 die, you probably shouldn't spend energy for that. If it's 2 die, if it is very important for you to jump ahead, if you have lots of energy, you can spare 1, maybe 2 times to reroll them. If you have 3 die that you don't like, that's definitely worth rerolling. So that's it, guys. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, tell me what other games you would like for me to review, especially with focusing on mechanics and efficiency.